I have deliberately overexposed the scene here because if I had it exposed properly for the background, this green would look almost black. And it's about the same density of green as that hull red is red. That hull red that I'll be using later, well, it's so dark it almost looks like a dark burgundy, but they call it red. Anyway, I selected this green for two reasons. First of all, because it does sort of match up with the red density-wise, and also because I knew I was going to have a lot of extra for it. The only time I'm actually going to need this green is when I paint the wings on the little airplanes that come with this kit. Now, yeah, so I'm not going to be using very much. Now, yesterday when I was spraying here, you notice that you can see the silhouette along the edge here. Well, I was finding that if I have something as a backdrop to an edge like this, it makes it really easy to spray, rather than holding it up in the air and you never know if you're hitting it or not. And I was just wondering, why couldn't a person use, like a piece of paper? I got tons of, or reams, I guess, of printer paper, something like that. And maybe even have sort of like some kind of a backdrop. It could be even just, fastened onto something as simple as a cardboard box. And then when you're doing something really, really small, like I'll set up and show you. Now this is just a rough idea, but you can see that when I'd be spraying like here, the overspray is going to form on the paper here, and you're going to get a silhouette of the piece. You're going to know when you're hitting it and when you're not, and not only that, by the amount of overspray forming on the white paper, well, you'll be able to tell just how much you're hitting this piece with. As soon as the paper gets really saturated, and then you know that so is this piece. At least that's my thinking right now. There are probably other people already do something like that, and if they don't, I'll probably find out why not. One of the viewers made the comment to the effect of, we're probably not going to live long enough to see the completion of this Bismarck. And it made me think, yeah, I've got to quit with all this experimenting around, and yeah, I've got to do more assembling. And well, today I'm going to do a little bit more experimenting around. I want to see, how well this panel line stuff will work. And this is going to be an ideal thing to experiment on. This looks like it was supposed to be a bunch of little hatches or something. Maybe they opened up and some sort of missiles would come out of it. I don't know. Well, it makes sense to me anyway. If you will recall, I trimmed the hairs on this little brush here. The idea being that maybe I could use it for panel line, because I was thinking that the little brush that came in the jar was just a little bit on the heavy side, and I felt that from what I'd seen of other people using it on YouTube, that there was just too much being put on all at once at the initial spot, and I thought possibly I could do it a little bit easier if I had a little bit less on. Now I don't know. I've never used this before. This is actually going to be the first time. I am first going to use the applicator that came in the bottle. Now the smell of this stuff, it's very clearly an oil base. It smells very oily. And that acrylic paint seems to have absorbed it. I wonder if maybe it works good with, like lacquer base paint. Anyway, now let's try the little brush here. Now my hope was that if I was to use the little brush like this, that the panel line color itself would stay in the cracks, but as you can see here, it's wicking its way through the entire, like you'll notice here it's on the top of each one of those little squares. Seems to me I did read, excuse me, I'm just getting more stuff here, that I did read that you should maybe spray this with some sort of a clear coat. Okay, well I can see that using this little brush doesn't make any difference because the panel line color has wicked its way right onto the top of each one of those little squares. I wonder if it's going to dry. Could be the applicator that came with the bottle is actually going to work the best. Well, it was an idea anyway. Maybe I'll have to go back on YouTube and Google this, just see what other people did. There's some very experienced modelers out there. I think I've pretty much got it all here. Okay, that's isopropyl. So it does sort of, isopropyl does dissolve it. Now I am noticing here is that as it seems to be drying, it does seem to be lightening up. Well, I still haven't gone online to check yet, but I am convinced that I have to stop poking at things. Actually, I'm convinced that it probably works best on something that has been painted with a lacquer paint or clear coated afterwards, because of the way the stuff wicked its way from the little cracks where I put it right onto the top of the little squares that you see there. Oh, and as for this little brush, I'm going to give up on it. It didn't work out as well as I thought. But don't worry, I have a plan for it. Well, I did say I was going to spray the hull today, and I think that's what we better do. And my plan is to treat this hull the very same way as I'm planning to treat the Bismarck hull. In other words, I put the primer on yesterday. We waited 24 hours now. And, okay, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this is the red hull color, because it's, like I mentioned, it's probably about the same consistency and darkness and everything. I know I'm not using the right word here, but who cares? Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint the bottom and then up to about a little further than maybe halfway up. I'm not going to go right to the gunnels. I don't know if you call this part of this type of ship a gunnel, but the old fishing boats that I used to use years ago, we used to refer to this as the gunnel. Yeah, we had her loaded to the gunnels. And sometimes we did. Anyway, yeah, so let's see what we can do here. And I'm being very careful once again not to get my greasy fingerprints on this. Now, speaking of greasy fingerprints, I'm going to conduct another experiment. You know how I like to test stuff out? Well, here we got some genuine mold release, and I've got slides, blank slides for a microscope that are going to be pristine. And my plan is to put greasy fingerprints and mold release on a slide, and then see if possibly soaking it in this will dissolve the fingerprints in grease. And that way I will, and also I'll be testing out some of the plastic parts, not from this kit, but from the the sprues that came with the Bismarck. So I know it's the exact same plastic. That way I'll know if this cleaner is going to have an adverse effect on it. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. I'm probably not going to even do that today yet. So let's see what we can do with this hull. Now I have dropped the air pressure from the 20 pounds per square inch that we were using yesterday to just a little under 15 today. And I have shaken my paint. I don't think it's going to take very much. Now these disposable pipettes, I don't bother rinsing them out. They're not worth it. Oh yeah, stop. Okay, I've already turned the furnace off. Once again, time is marching on, and it's my plan to have this edited out and up on YouTube in time to be watched around supper time tonight, so I better get at this. And tomorrow we'll have a nice close look at this and see how it came out. Yeah, in the meantime, I've got an airbrush I gotta clean up. So until tomorrow, thanks for watching.